Welcome to Big Pool Discipleship 101, The Bible in a Year, Week 33, Jeremiah 4 through 29, From Corrupt Priests to a False Preacher. Jeremiah was a priest, preaching to his fellow priests about their corruption. Jeremiah proves that it is possible for any of us to swim against the tide of church sin. His was a long ministry over 5 national administrations. The cure for national corruption is the truth, unfiltered, uncompromising truth. Jeremiah preached to a disobedient nation that constantly threatened him. It was a tough ministry, and so God gave him heaps of encouragement. In Jeremiah 4, what's the coming disaster as he weeps for his people and faces a confusing battle between true and counterfeit religion? Will the nation return to God? Jeremiah 5 lists some of Judah's sins as injustice, dishonesty, adultery, achieving greatness and riches by wicked deeds, and loving false preaching. For one just and honest person, God will not punish the city. Are you that person? What lesson can you learn? Jeremiah 6 gives Jerusalem a last warning. Her preachers are frauds, and Judah refuses to listen. A foreign attack will be God's punishment. Do we accept God's word, even when it goes against everything we want? In Jeremiah 7, he preaches against theft, murder, adultery, and lying at the entrance of the temple. The people even sacrificed their own children and would not listen. How do people deceive themselves? In Jeremiah 8, why do people stay on their self-destructive path? Why does Jeremiah weep for this sinful nation? In Jeremiah 9, what is the purpose of God's judgment for disobedience? What is the one thing that God says we may boast about? What does it mean circumcised in body but not in spirit? What does Jeremiah 10 say about astrology and idols carved from wood? Why are idols ridiculous lies? What lesson can we learn? Why does Jeremiah's prayer say we're not able to plan our own course? In Jeremiah 11, how has Judah broken the covenant? What did his enemies plot against Jeremiah? What did God do? In Jeremiah 12, what questions did Jeremiah ask of God? What was God's answer? What was God's message for neighboring nations? In Jeremiah 13, how did the loincloth picture Judah and Israel? What is God's warning against national pride? In Jeremiah 14, what caused Judah's drought? What did the Lord say to Jeremiah? What was Jeremiah's prayer? In Jeremiah 15, what was God's answer to Jeremiah's prayer? What was Jeremiah's lament? How did the Lord encourage him? In Jeremiah 16, why was he forbidden to marry in that place? What reply was Jeremiah to give when asked about God's decree? What word of hope does God give? What was Jeremiah's prayer? In Jeremiah 17, what are the sins and punishment of Judah? What happens to those who put their trust in mere humans? What does well-known verse Jeremiah 17:9 say? What happens to a country that allows 7-day trading? How could a Sabbath law apply in a land where most Christians and Jews observe different days? In Jeremiah 18, what is the lesson of the potter and the clay? What was the plot against Jeremiah? What lesson can we learn? In Jeremiah 19, what is the lesson of the shattered jar? In Jeremiah 20, what did Pashur do to Jeremiah? What was Jeremiah's prophecy? Magor-Mishabib means terror on every side. What was Jeremiah's prayer? In Jeremiah 21, what was God's word about Babylon's victory over Judah? What was the message to Judah's kings? In Jeremiah 22, what is God's message about the palace? What are the prophecies for Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, and Jehoiakim? In Jeremiah 23, what is the message to unrighteous national shepherds? Who is the righteous branch or descendant? What does God say to false preachers? In Jeremiah 24, what is the lesson of the good and bad figs? In Jeremiah 25, how long would Judah be captive in Babylon? In Jeremiah 26, what happened after Jeremiah preached in the courtyard in front of the temple? What lesson can we learn? Who defended Jeremiah? In Jeremiah 27, what is the lesson of the yoke on his neck? What did he say about the false preachers? In Jeremiah 28, what happened in Jeremiah's confrontation with the false preacher Hananiah? In Jeremiah 29, what was in his letter to the exiles in Babylon? What was his message about Shemaiah? What lesson can we learn? Well, that's it for this week. May God bless you.